Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Wednesdays in Wiedemann. We are going on with the third Wednesdays in Wiedemann, and for this one we're moving into the 20th century. 20th century, you say, with Bach on the program? Yes, because these two really very popular tunes by Bach have been transcribed for organ by Maurice DURUFLE, 20th century composer, and André ISOIR, also 20th century performer and composer. It's interesting to note that Bach was a prolific composer, as we know, but he wrote a total of about 200 cantatas, and this is the typical Baroque treatment of a traditional church hymn, and this was during his time in Leipzig to meet the need of the church for about 58 cantatas each year. That's a lot of writing, a lot of performing, singing with a small orchestra or an oboe and two recorders, many different things, but always a choir. For this first tune, Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring, it's the violinist and composer Johann who composed this celebrated chorale melody, which you'll recognize once I start playing it, in 1642. And the title was Werde, munter, mein Gemuthe. But Bach harmonized and orchestrated it into what we know today as Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring. The words in English, the most famous English translation that we know today is by the poet laureate Robert Bridges, and it's Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring, holy wisdom, love most bright, drawn by thee, our souls aspiring, soar to uncreated light. Now, these two tunes that we're going to play, I'll play back to back, were very popular in the 18th century. They were popular because Bach put them in his choral cantatas. These are hits. These are hits of the day, so much so that in this next one, we will see that Bach even wrote it out as a version for organ in his famous Schubler chorales. Wachet auf, ruft uns die Stimme, wake, awake, for night is flying. It's Philipp NICOLAI who wrote the hymn in 1598, and it's based on the parable of the 10 virgins in the book of Matthew. Bach, in turn, used this hymn for his immensely popular chorale cantata number 140, and also, as I said, for one of the immensely popular Schubler chorales by Bach for organ. This is what you'll hear tonight in André ISOIR's transcription, but he has added the continuo and the supporting harmony that you would have heard in the orchestral version and choral version in the cantata. So that will be another interesting aspect to it. So the first two pages, musical pages, Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring from Cantata 147, and Wachet auf, ruft uns die Stimme, Cantata 140. The first transcribed by Maurice DURUFLE, the second arranged for organ by André ISOIR. to something French, and the variations sur un thème de Clément Jannequin. In the words of Jehan ALAIN himself, who was the brother of the lady I went to study with in France, Maurice DURUFLE, this piece must be played like the preludes of which spoke Couperin, François Couperin, with a breath of fresh air and tenderness. And to note, the melody is really anonymous. It's not by Clément Jannequin. It sounds good, but it was one of the songs published in the collection in 1529 by Pierre Attaignant, The Hope I Cherish to Attain Your Favor. And this piece is really a very good example of how well a text goes with the music and vice versa. In music appreciation, it would be word-music relationship. It really sets off what the words would be if they were sung. Let me just say what the text is in English, and then I'll say it in French and immediately play it. Jehan ALAIN gives us his version of this old tune in weeping in and out of modern music, modern harmony, and old harmony. The hope I cherish to attain your favor and to reap the benefits I seek keeps me suspended in air while awaiting your grace. But if you do not respond to my advances, force will be that from loving I will grow weary. L'espoir que j'ai d'acquérir votre grâce et de jouir du bien que je pourchasse me tient suspens en attendant votre appoint. Mais si de bref vous ne venez au point, force sera que d'aimer je me lasse. now to the last piece, Toccata, by Théodore DUBOIS. You probably have not heard very much about him. He has a very impressive biography listing many important positions that he held. One was choir master at the Church of the Madeleine in Paris. He also took over from César Franck as choir master at the Church of Sainte-Clotilde, also in Paris. He was then the organist of the Church of the Madeleine, succeeding Camille Saint-Saëns. He taught at the Paris Conservatory, and among his well-known students were Paul Ducasse, the apprentice sorcerer, and Guy Roparts. He was the director of the conservatory in Paris and had, this will interest you, it interests me, an intransigently conservative regime. And listen to this. Old French music, such as that of Rameau and of course others, and modern music, including that of Wagner, were kept rigorously out of the curriculum. That seems amazing for us today. He was also, and get this, unremittingly hostile to Maurice Ravel, who, when a conservatory student, did not conform to the faculty's anti-modernism. DUBOIS forbade conservatory students to attend performances of Claude Debussy's groundbreaking new opera, Pélias and Mélisande. He was forced into an early retirement. I guess we can see why, and they then had Gabriel Fauré as the director of the conservatory after that, and with an edict saying you must modernize the institution. Théodore DUBOIS' works include ballets, oratorios, 3 symphonies. He wanted to be an opera composer, but it didn't really quite make it. Also, César Franck wanted to be very well known as an opera composer, but things didn't work out that way for either of them. Plus works for organ, including this very often played toccata. But Théodore DUBOIS' lasting influence is one in teaching, and he has written, is still widely used, treatises on counterpoint and fugue, and treatises on practical theory and harmony, which are still used. I used his treatise on practical theory and harmony. Look where it got me. But anyway, Théodore DUBOIS, Toccata in G major.